Yeah, thanks, Tammy. Good morning again. So first of all, again, I think I said this the other night when giving this presentation, but apologies we can't be out there for real this morning. Much better doing this stuff face to face rather than from the bedroom office, but I digress. So what I'm going to cover this morning is essentially a project update on the proposals for the 3 new stations at Drury Central, Drury West and Paerata. In terms of the optioneering we've done in terms of locations and the facilities we're proposing, and the feedback that we're seeking specifically on the land footprint that we're going to be seeking to designate later this year. I'll be giving you an update on the key timings and program of that, and finally how you can get in touch with us to further the conversation and give us feedback on these proposals. So to start right at the beginning, Te Tupu Ngātahi Supporting Growth was set up at the end of 2017, and our remit is essentially to undertake the planning for the transport network required to support the planned future growth areas of Auckland. So that includes the northwest area, the northern area, Warkworth, and what we're talking about today, which is the southern area, which overall comprises 70-something projects, which forms a network that'll be built out over a 30-year period to support the growth that is planned. So for the southern growth area, it's a very large area, starting from Manukau in the north, Pukekohe in the south. So the yellow areas on the map indicate what Auckland Council has identified as future urban zoning to be urbanised over 30 years. So that includes Takanini, Opaheke, Drury, Paerata and Pukekohe. So the work we did through 2018-19 identified this overall network that we're looking to progress through the planning process. So that comprises road projects, active mode walking and cycling projects, safety upgrades, all mapped here. And what we're here to talk about this morning is the future rail components of that network, which on this map are identified in the red. So getting into a little bit more detail on that. So we subsequently began a business case specifically looking at the rail elements of that program. So we've already heard from the P2P project this morning talking about the short-term electrification of the section of track between Papakura and Pukekohe. Our job is to look a bit further out and look at what's required to support the growth over 30 years. So that comprises, I suppose, 3 main elements. So the first of those is sort of the capacity improvements. So currently there's 2 tracks along there. We're looking at what land will be required for a 3rd track and a 4th track in the long term. The second element is an active mode corridor, which looks to take advantage of the gradients around the rail track to get a walking and cycling shared path parallel to the rail corridor. So we're planning for that. But what we're here to talk about today are the 3 railway stations planned between Papakura and Pukekohe. So to give a very high-level overview of the stations, the first, working from the north and working my way south, the first is Drury Central, which is located south of Waihoihoi Road and west of State Highway 1, where I'm pointing now, and about just under 2.5 kilometres to the southeast is Drury West Station. So that's again located to the west of State Highway 1, south of State Highway 22 and Jesmond Road. Those 2 stations are looking to serve sort of quite distinct catchments that have State Highway 1 sort of running down the middle of them. 2 quite large areas of planned urbanisation either side of the State Highway there, looking to be served by those 2 stations. And finally, another just under 5 kilometres to the southwest of Drury West is Paerata Station, and that station sort of serves two major functions. So the first is obviously to serve the development immediately around it. So we obviously know about the Paerata Rise development, which is building out now as we speak. It's that sort of grey area there. And also, we've got further growth on the other side of the tracks planned for later on. But this station is also looking to serve that whole rural Franklin catchment. So capturing areas including the likes of King's Seat, Clark's Beach, Waiuku, and the like. So these graphs here are looking to capture our long-term aspiration for how each of these stations is likely to be accessed based on the transport planning work that we've done. So at each of these stations, we're identifying that in the long term, once these areas are urbanised, there'll be different ways and means of people to access these stations, with the overall goal being to maximise the access to these stations, get as many people onto the trains as possible, maximising that capacity to relieve State Highway 1 in particular. So while we're showing here that, for example, Drury Central in the long term, we're looking at a lot of people getting there by bus, for example. Drury West, we're looking at a relatively high walk up and cycle up catchment, and at Paerata it's sort of quite balanced between walking and cycling and the park and ride. That plays out obviously differently over time. So to begin with, each one of these stations is going to be pretty heavily reliant on park and ride in the short to medium term, given that these areas in most cases are not yet urbanised and are going to be urbanising over the course of decades. So to get into a bit more detail in each of the stations, beginning in the north with Drury Central. So our previous round of engagement in May 2020, we did want to go out earlier than that, but COVID being what it was, we were placed in lockdown, so that delayed our engagement to May 2020. But that focused very much on our options for the station platforms themselves, and that the platforms kind of anchor our decision making, and then subsequently inform what the facilities around them actually are and where they're located. So we went out with 3 options for Drury Central last year within this general area between Waihoihoi Road and State Highway 1. There was basically a northern option, a central option, and a southern option. And essentially the preference that came out of that process was option A. So the sort of halfway in between Goldilocks, best of both worlds option. So option C we didn't prefer on the basis that it sort of sandwiched the station platforms between the Hengaia Stream and the water care assets on 103 Flanagan Road, and also the water pipeline that runs along the rail line there. Option B presented a few geometry issues, I suppose, in terms of the curve of the railway tracks and their relationship to the Waihoihoi Road bridge. So subsequently we're left with option A as the preferred platform location for Drury Central. So having anchored that decision, we're now looking to gauge the public's feedback on the interchange facilities to serve that platform. So what you see outlined in orange here is very much an indicative footprint for where those facilities might be accommodated. Now there's room for that footprint to move depending on the feedback that we receive through this process, but essentially what we're looking to provide for in that footprint is the full range of interchange facilities that are going to maximise the accessibility of that station. So that'll include likely a park and ride facility, access roads, access pathways, walking and cycling facilities, and cycle parking. And a bus interchange facility as well to enable those easy transfers between the bus network that we're planning for this area and the rail network. So yeah, there's a bit of flexibility built into that footprint depending on how those elements are staged over time. And I suppose we're looking for feedback on have we got the footprint right? Is it adequate for what we want to provide at the station in terms of access, but also what are the impacts of that footprint? How does it affect the people out there now? So I suppose that the benefits of the facility that we propose here is that it is oriented towards the future growth. So there's a very large catchment of planned urbanisation to the immediate, I suppose, east and southeast of the station. So this facility, as these interchange facilities would maximise the accessibility of that station, be it by car, bus, walking, or cycling, in the as the area is built out. So moving ahead to Drury West, so again that's another just under 2.5 kilometres to the southwest of Drury Central, on the other side of the State Highway 1. So again, we went out in May 2020 with these 3 platform options, and our preferred option that came out of that process was this western option, option A. We considered that it maximised the development catchment, and it also maximised the separation between Drury Central and Drury West, such that they're both serving separate catchments, maximising their catchment, not overlapping them too much, so that there's not sort of 2 stations trying to do the same thing or trying to serve the same people. Option B had some limitations in that it's located on a curved section of track, so would require a lot of additional land take and disruption to actually straighten the track there, such that you could actually get a safe and accessible platform there that trains can safely operate on. Option C was also not favoured, given mainly its proximity to Drury Central Station, i.e. they were too close together for the trains to operate efficiently, but also that it would mean that the 2 catchments would overlap. Again, speaking to that issue of if you're building 2 stations, you want them to serve 2 different catchments rather than serving the same catchment. Otherwise, you just build 1. The other limitation you have there is its relative proximity to the Ngakaroa stream, the upper reaches of the Ngakaroa stream system. So to minimise that environmental effect, we didn't favour that option. So option A was the preferred. So on the basis of that, we've progressed the identification, the optioneering around this footprint again that we're showing here in orange in this new engagement map. So again, within that footprint, it's a very indicative footprint at this stage, and it's looking to identify an indicative footprint for again all of the facilities that you might require to gain access to that station. Again, whether it by park and ride facility, if you're driving up, your walking and cycling facilities, your cycle parking, and a bus interchange. So again, the overarching goal being to maximise access to this station from its surrounding catchment, so that we're giving as many people the opportunity to use the train in future as possible. So again, we're looking for feedback here on on the adequacy of this footprint for what we're looking to achieve here, but also understanding the property impacts as well, and other environmental effects that we may not have considered. So again, the benefits of a station, of the facilities that we're providing for here is essentially, I'll just reiterate that it does maximise the accessibility of the station from this Drury West catchment, the planned urbanisation that's happening, and further afield. Excuse me. So Paerata Station is the final one of the 3. So again, in May 2020 we came out with 2 platform options, option A and option B. One either side of the planned future road coming from State Highway 22 and crossing over the railway line. So the preference that came out of that was for option A, which is the northern of the 2 options. And the reasons for that were essentially, one, that it was considered to integrate better with the Paerata Rise development, and we've had extensive engagement with the developers there to ensure that we are providing for accessibility of the station to that residential development as much as possible. And by not going with option B, we ensure that integration, but we also avoid a area of floodplain that's south of this planned road here. That was the other key reason that we chose to go with option A. So again, on the basis of this is the platform option, we went away and developed this indicative footprint in orange. Again, as per the other 2, looking to maximise the accessibility of that station. And as I mentioned earlier, the relative share of access by park and ride at this station is likely to be higher, just given the nature of the wider rural catchment it's serving, from again places like Clark's Beach and Kingseat and Waiuku. But again, we're also providing for bus interchange facilities and active mode facilities within that footprint as well. Again, seeking to maintain a bit of flexibility within that footprint, and seeking your feedback on again, have we got enough there? Is it sensible? And again, what are the impacts that we may not have considered? So I've sort of covered that already. We're just looking to maximise access to the stations from the immediate and the surrounding and the further afield catchments. So that sort of covers the, I suppose, the substance of what we're seeking feedback on. In terms of program and timing, we're obviously beginning our engagement process on those footprints now through these sessions, but we're also have an engagement period open for the next several weeks, whereby we'll be very happy to talk individually with interested parties about these proposals in a little bit more detail. At the same time, we are commissioning technical investigations to get into the detail of what the environmental impacts on these sites are actually going to be. So that involves commissioning planning reports, but also technical investigations, be it ecology or geotechnical work, or any of that technical work required to actually fully understand our environmental impact. And finally, we're currently looking at mid-2021, looking to actually lodge the applications for these projects, subject, of course, to the approvals of the boards of Kiwi Rail and Auckland Transport, but also subject to the feedback we get through this engagement process. So in terms of that engagement process, there are numerous channels which we're seeking feedback through that you can engage with us with. So there's obviously this session, which we intended to have in person, where we can give a very broad overview of everything. Now, in terms of more specific engagement, you can submit through our social pinpoint page. We've got the URL on the screen there for that. And our website at supportinggrowth.govt.nz gives you all of the relevant contact details to actually get in touch with us directly, particularly for those of you that are more directly affected by these proposals and will want to talk to us on a one-to-one basis to look at some of the more specific aspects of the proposal that you'll be interested in.